Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Mount Ascutney School District Board on today, Monday, the 7th of April, 2025 at 6:31 p.m. And our first item of business is going to be changes or additions to the agenda. And I do have one change now. We're going to be moving item C. We're going to be swapping item C and item B. So prior to the conversation on bullying, we're going to be reviewing the YRBS data. And I think we're also, is there some of that in the administrative report too? Or
no, it's a separate.
That's a separate thing? Okay. Yep. Yeah, so it's going to go field trip approval, YRBS data, bullying, and then the rest of the agenda is going to be the same. Right. Any other changes or additions? All right. So next up, we have approval of the minutes from March 10th, 2025. I'm just going to pull those up here. Where are they at? Okay. So I will take a motion to accept the minutes from March 10th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? This is reorganization, so it's all just the things that happened during reorganization and then a couple other items.
Yep.
I'm not seeing the changes.
No.
All right. So since there's no more comments or changes, I will do a, do we have anybody else online right now? Elizabeth's here too. Have we seen Bill yet? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I will call a simple voice vote to approve the minutes. All those in favor of approving the minutes from March 10th, 2025, please say aye.
Aye.
Please.
I think Amy's saying aye up there. Is that correct? Okay. Yep.
Is
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. So those minutes are approved unanimously, minus Bill. All right. Next on the agenda is public comment on non-agenda items or any announcements that anyone might have. So I'm just going to read. I appreciate that we have a lot of folks here tonight, so I'm going to read the longer version of this. So public comment is not legally required. We believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns over issues. Through these meetings, our board models for our students how to conduct public discourse and that the board and members of our community can approach controversial issues in a civil and constructive manner and can demonstrate mutual respect. Having said that, please note that the board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed for discussion. And you can start by identifying yourself, what town you reside in, and please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. And let's see what else we have. So we'll insist that all speakers and members of the audience maintain civility and respect for any divergent views that others possess. Likewise, you may expect that any restrictions will be viewpoint neutral. And please do not expect the board to respond to your questions and comments today. We take your concerns seriously and want to have sufficient time to process and research issues if need requires it. If there seems to be an issue that ought to be followed up on, we may respond to the future meeting or have an appropriate staff member get back to you at an appropriate time. The one caveat to that I'll say is that if there's like a very simple informational question that comes up, we'll respond in real time. It's just, we're not going to have a drawn out conversation in that setting. All right, so this is public comment for any items that are not on the agenda or any announcements.
Ashley.
Oh, Ashley.
Good evening. My name is Ashley Rich. I reside in Windsor, Vermont. I have 2 students that attend Windsor School, one who is in 4th grade and one who is a freshman in high school. I've reached out to some members of the board as well as administration. I also felt the need that some of this needs to become more public and not just via email so that it can be seen. The first that I'm going to say is that, maybe a month and a half ago or a month ago, I wrote an email to the board over concerns over the unwelcoming atmosphere within the elementary school, in particular around administration. Was told that you would be working on things, and within 2 weeks after that email, It was clear that no constructive criticism or feedback was taken or absorbed. So that's the first one. I will gladly talk with people about that separately. The second is regarding my concern that Mount Ascutney School District and School Board is not taking school safety appropriately. Not necessarily on a bullying level so much as an atmosphere. In particular, I have my freshman in high school who is coming home and sending me messages in a panic from school over overall the negative and disrespectful and, to be honest, unsafe atmosphere that is in the high school. Again, I really want this to be in a public setting and not just swept under the rug with emails. I'm getting daily reports that kids are using the N word, the R word, using Nazi salutes, throwing things at them, smirking. It's happening when people are seeing it, when people aren't. While I appreciate that Kate Ryan is trying to take steps, it is not enough. And it's not enough just to put your DEI person on it. That isn't effective. I had to educate my 14-year-old daughter about sex toys a couple of weeks ago. That was not on my parenting bingo card of things that I thought I would have to talk with my 14-year-old daughter about. Hi, Alice. I have some really grave concerns over the damage that this is providing and giving to my daughter. And I keep hearing, we'll work on it. We have such and such in place, but I'm telling you, it's not enough. I've seen a big shift in school culture when taking on Leader in Me. I urge administration and the school board to revisiting that. The shift since taking on Leader in Me has been incredibly negative. It does not appear that the values are being met in the middle. Values don't seem to be matching up or taken seriously by administration, families, and students. I'm really frustrated about this, and especially when WCAX does a wonderful piece on what's happening in the elementary school on one side, but there's also a darker side that's going on in Windsor High School and even within Windsor School in the elementary side. I'm urging other people to look into this as well. The optics for Windsor School are great. Your sports teams, on point. Your public relations, on point. But it's also covering up a lot of things that are not great. And so I needed to come on in a public setting where it can be reviewed by other entities to be considered and for further steps. That's all.
Yep. Thanks for your comment, Ashley. Any other announcements or public comments for items not on the agenda? Sit sideways.
Will we be able to make comments during the voting session?
Yes. Yes. All right. Hearing none, we will move on to the administrative report.
Do you want to share your screen, Tracy, with the video?
I'm gonna try. Sorry.
I'll just share and then you can.
Oh, yeah.
Are
Are
you-
the videos in a different
so-
place than the?
So
that's
can
not-
we start with the student presentation?
Yeah, sure.
You want to go first?
If I can get there.
If you can get there.
Let's try that first. I have this year. I think was the first year that the elementary school had a student lighthouse team, and they were planning to attend, but when they realized it was going to be out here and they'd missed baseball practice, they opted for the video version. So I have two short videos. So hopefully I can get these two. This is the first one. These are our 3 fifth grade thing.
So these are Windsor Elementary's student lighthouse team leaders, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you.
Turn it down.
I'm Aaron. I'm in 5th grade in Miss Semifeld's class.
I'm Xavier. I'm in 5th grade and I'm in Miss Pomeler's class.
I'm Alex. I'm in 5M.
All right. So you are the first student lighthouse team that Windsor has had. Right? So can you talk to me about how you got selected to be on the lighthouse team?
There was blind voting. We had to fill out a form on our Chromebooks, and then the 2nd and 3rd graders voted, and whoever got voted the most got to be in the lighthouse team.
And Xavier, explain what you mean by blind voting.
No names. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4.
So they voted on your application, right?
It was labeled by number.
And you can't. It's like if you go to if you went to the principal's office too much, you couldn't.
Yeah.
You couldn't even sign anything.
So do you think there was a process before the students voted? Like, were there people that applied that didn't get onto the election?
Because I think a lot of people in all the classes want to do it just to take the chance, and some people but a lot of them I feel were because when we watched the presentation, it's them building a playground and doing a bunch of really fun stuff. So everyone was wanting to do it because they wanted to do all that fun stuff. But depending on how you filled out your application, it asked you what do you want to do as a student lighthouse team on the student lighthouse team, and then depending on that, other people would decide if they liked what you wanted to do, and then whoever got the most votes would be on the student lighthouse team.
Correct. And
So I think this is where we discovered, well, Alex will tell you in a minute here. Let's see.
Okay, so we've just learned this video will only last for 2 minutes, so we have a few clips here. But Xavier, you were going to tell us about who could or couldn't apply to be a lighthouse team leader.
Yeah, if you have too many write-ups or you didn't do your work, you couldn't apply because
It wasn't showing leadership, I think.
It wasn't showing leadership.
All right. So what are some of the things that being on the student lighthouse team, or being the student lighthouse team, what are some of your responsibilities?
To be kind, show people
show you the way.
But also be good, because some of the people look up to us, and if you're just being bad, then they'll choose to be bad, but if you're good, they'll choose to be good.
So we'd say lead by example, right? Like
Yeah.
you behave and act the way that we would want everyone else to do. Tell me some of the jobs you have to do.
We read at assemblies.
We haven't done that many yet, because it kind of started at the beginning of the year and then it kind of fell off, and we're trying to restart it again. We did open house at the beginning of the year, and we're hopefully gonna be doing field day.
Yeah.
Helping organize
And
that.
5th graders are already running the stations, and we're all 5th graders.
Yeah.
Good.
And we have the big kickball game against all the teachers.
No, I can't do that.
It'll be fun.
I'm a little afraid of that, but that's okay.
We're gonna kick you guys.
All right, we'll discuss that next video. What about, so I know at the beginning of the year we had a really good start, and then it felt like things kind of fell off, whether it was for time or things. If you could make plans for the year, what would you want the Student Lighthouse team to be? What would you want your schedule to be? How often would you want to meet?
Every other week on a
Yeah,
Wednesday.
every other week
On Wednesday or
Thursday.
Thursday?
On a
Depending on the
Saturday.
schedule, right?
Maybe
Yeah.
Friday, actually.
And in those meetings, what would you want us to discuss?
What events,
Or
school things,
not just like school events, like some out of school,
Mhm.
like open house when people
Yeah.
get to come in. I think we should do one at the end of the year,
Mhm.
so like there's more progress of the students.
Nice.
Yeah, like they can see how, like, they're
Thinking about the family engagement nights, like that'd
Yes,
be nice to
those are-
rope you in to try to help lead
Yeah.
some of those as
Those are-
well. Would you, if you knew what it was like right now, would you apply again?
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah?
would. I
Good.
we need more people anyway.
Yeah.
Like we need more people, but like
Especially
it's,
to like greet at assemblies and when we do more like open houses or something. Honestly, I don't even know if we're gonna do a new application. Like, I don't know if the other people are gonna like do it. Maybe they already have though,
I think that
because they announced it at field day
Yeah.
when the student lighthouse teams like went at the end of the kickball game. They announced who were it, and then
You're back to the
took a
kickball
big-
game again here, huh?
Yeah.
I get you.
And then
Well, it sounds like you should help us develop that application process
yeah.
and figure out the schedule. Okay, so I have one final question. What advice would you give your teachers about the Student Lighthouse team and how you want it to be run? And what advice would you give to students who think they want to be on the Student Lighthouse team?
I think I would like give kids, like younger kids who want to be on the Student Lighthouse team, to like think of it not as much as, oh, I'm leading the entire school, I'm doing a bunch of things, it's gonna be super stressful, blah blah. Like, but more think of it like you're like if you're in older, like if you're in higher grades, like think of it as you're like leading the other people, like on a team, or like I don't know, on like if you're doing a group work in like class, like think of it as kind of like you're leading that, and then like don't think about, oh, we're going to be talking in front of the entire school and a bunch of adults when we do the Stripe Awards. We're going to be think of it as like, oh, we're reading this to like congratulate all of the people who like worked hard to be good people, and yeah.
Nice, good advice. How about you, Xavier? Any advice? No
You
advice?
said everything.
Yeah, would
he
you
did.
would you do it again if knowing what you know? Would you be on Student Lighthouse again?
Yeah, I definitely would.
Yeah, me too.
Alex? Do you have any advice?
I don't know. Like, just like, don't be scared.
Oh,
Cause like you may think it's gonna be stressful to like go out in front of the school, the elementary school, and like talk to people. But if you really actually get up there, you may have like it might be a little bit scary at the start, but the second like meeting or thing that we
leadership
had in front of the
assembly.
school, like I'm pretty sure all of us were used to it.
You seem more comfortable.
By the second one, yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Like I remember the first time that we did it, like we were all really
Nervous.
nervous.
Yeah,
We were like, we're gonna mess up. This is gonna go bad. And then we did it, and it was like super easy. It was just reading off a piece of paper into a microphone, like, and we all had, at least I had a lot of fun doing it because it was like something different. It wasn't just you go up to class and do your stuff and then come down. It was something different. So,
Good.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. You've done a really nice job, and I think part of your leadership for me is that you can just sit here comfortably and talk too. Like that's a really important quality. So, thank you.
So I guess that's what they would have said if they had come. I told them they got one take. We're doing this once, right? So, but it's definitely an area that it started. I was not a part of the selection process at the beginning. The team was larger, and we've had some ups and downs and changes, and their schedules haven't been really consistent. But there's a lot of room for growth. But I think these three have done a great job and have good advice.
Yeah, and I'll throw out there. I saw at least a couple of these guys run the
Leadership
this-
assemblies,
yeah, leadership assembly, and they do an amazing job. And that was an early in the year one too. So I think it was the first or second. So I mean, if they were nervous, they were not showing it. It's really cool to see our students, our students, like you were saying, take on that leadership role and really take it seriously and kind of be the ones who are like recognizing their younger peers. It's very cool.
They had to come down and watch themselves this morning and see themselves on camera since they
Nice.
unfortunately.
So updates on Otterburg School. Over the last month, we had our student-led day of play, which is our students basically developed, our student leadership team developed an entire day of structured activities and asked or teachers to support them in their activities. And throughout the day, students moved between different activities based on their choice. So really trying to advocate for voice and choice. And the ultimate experience was just wonderful to see. And every time we do this, where we have these multi-grades really come together, students who usually don't have a place to shine find a place to shine. And I think that's a part of the magic of those opportunities, of giving those kids who maybe are more reserved or have different interests to connect, particularly in a small school, with others who might have similar interests. So you'll see in that top right, no, hold on, I gotta use my left-hand corner. That's a Duck Duck Goose game by 2 6th graders all the way down through kindergartners, and they spend 45 minutes out there playing versions of Duck Duck Goose and Mother May I and different versions of it, and they're all thoroughly engaged. And it was great to see kindergartners being able to lead 6th graders and 6th graders being great role models. We're in the middle of testing. We've got a few people left to finish their testing. This is again a state mandated thing that has some value in some places. It's really, it takes a lot of time out of good learning, good experiences for kids to sit and stare at a computer and answer questions and then wait for their peers to finish their tests. But we're navigating through it, and this is, I think, our 3rd time with this round of state testing. So we'll see what that comes out to. We're in the middle of student-led conferences, which I've been able to sit in on a couple and help kids prepare. And it's just great to see kids be able to share what they're excited about in their own learning, which goes back to giving student agency, which I'll go down to Student Power Summit, which is we're able to bring 3 staff members, and we're originally going to bring 2 students, but for medical reasons they weren't able to go to the Student Power Summit, which we've done now. This is the 4th year, I think, for SU. And the big takeaway is that when you give students children the ability to have agency over their education, not everything, not all the time, but really being able to find what it is that they do well and do it well, and find others who enjoy what they enjoy. There's a power that happens in our brains and in our community, and so we want to continue to celebrate that. We just finished our maple sugaring unit where we had our maple celebration, which you'll see a couple of the images down the bottom left-hand corner. Wonderful community showed up, and then you can see in that middle picture, that's actually our student members of our student leadership team setting the stage. Like they did the whole planning, they set the room up. Like we're doing a lot more hands-off, which is really quite a wonderful experience myself. And then you'll see kids in this middle lower picture where they're learning how to split wood. And we're at the point now we've got a couple of students who teach other students how to split wood. We're not using axes, but we do have a nice wedge in there and appropriate sized hammers that they practice with. And then they split the wood for our evaporator. And then in this other picture, you'll just see images of kids working together, learning together. Schooling is hard, but when you see kids smiling and talking together, it just reinforces that there's a lot of value in what we have to offer.
Yeah, I guess a couple things from the elementary side in Windsor. We are excited for Tara Custer, who's our librarian, who's leaving on maternity leave after April break, and we have been so lucky to find actually someone she went to school with who is filling in for her. So she, Sarah Mulberg, has been in school since April 2nd, getting to know the kids, getting to know the routines, working with Tara. So that transition will happen after break. We had a wonderful assembly on March 27th from Nana's Books, where we were awarded so many books. And this really is the work of Destiny Lawyer, who put it all together and very last minute pulled off an amazing day for Dennis Delniak to spend at school. He read to students. He visited lunchrooms and cafeterias. We did have WCAX come, and everything just, when things are kind of meant to be, they just all fall into place. And that was a day that just fell into place and was amazing. But Destiny really deserves a lot of credit for receiving the grant and the work that went into it and then coordinating the day. We have concluded our VTCAP testing. Those are long, hard weeks for students and teachers, and we're glad to be back to a more usual schedule. Our fifth graders participated in the, I won't say much about it because Colleen probably will, the presentation of Ryan's story by John Hulligan, who came and shared. Only our fifth graders went. It was content heavy, and I just have to say that the students were amazing. I mean, the story and the presenter just captured everybody. So they were just captivated by his story and what he had to say, that the students did an outstanding job in the assembly. Our sixth grade also our fifth grade went to see the sixth grade performance of The Big Top. That was the theater that Lauren Warner put together. And I think this month we really have been crossing hallways, I guess, in those examples of some elementary students participating in middle school and high school. The kindergarten class, Miss Angie's class, made stone soup, and they invited the cafeteria workers to come and have lunch with them, and that's what this picture was. So they went down to the kitchen and helped put the soup together, and then they came up and celebrated with the kids at the end of the day, and I love that. We are in the midst of student-led conferences this week, and then the middle school guidance counselors, Colleen and I are working, and Maureen Mulligan are working we've been hearing from the fifth graders how they're anxious about just going across the hall, but it feels like another school away. So we're already talking about multiple opportunities for the fifth graders to make connections with some of the people in the middle school to help with that transition. Oh, and then I think at the last meeting you asked about our family engagement nights. So April 24th is the next math engagement night. And we're trying to make it a kind of a make and take, that you come and learn to play a lot of math games, and then you take the supplies to go home and play them at home as well. So that's great.
And in the Windsor Middle School updates, some of the things that are happening now with the leadership activities. One, as Tracy spoke about, was the Nana's Book grant award. This was mostly in our sixth grade classes, and the reason why Ms. Lawyer was involving our sixth graders was because it started because of her disabilities unit, and she tries to open up her library to be very wide and very deep, and she applies for grants for new books all the time, and this foundation heard about her unit on this, and that's how the sixth graders got involved. And they really were excited about being the leaders of this day and running the assembly and leading it. And then the best part was sharing the books with all the children in all the classrooms. And that week, 2 weeks ago, was really, like Tracy said, across the hallway of middle schoolers working with elementary, high schoolers working with elementary and middle school. And it then reversed, and we found that the preschoolers came and thanked our sixth graders, which was really, really surprising to our sixth graders that it crossed in the other direction. It was really fun. One of the other leadership activities is our eighth grader, speaking of groups that get together, our leadership team, our Lighthouse team in the middle school meets every Tuesday, and they put together, specifically our eighth graders were really interested in running a March Madness activity with students and teachers participating in it together. And that was really exciting. And they're now having conversations with the teachers about what kind of prizes they could win for these competitive moments, looking for some fun things to do. But they're already thinking about another kind of event for the staff and families and students. One of the other leadership pieces is we had any student in the middle school be able to apply, but only 2 students. Well, that's not true. Few students applied, and then they only chose so many through the group. Through, I believe it is the restorative practice program, where we have trained the trainers. Students are doing a bystander intervention program, and they're going to be going this Friday. So we're excited because part of the return is that they're going to come back to the school board meeting and talk about what they learned, because they're going to be talking to their peers. Other leadership activities was those theater performances, and we're really excited that beyond our usual semester-long classes, Ms. Warner was able to do quarter-long classes for smaller groups, and the kids were putting on fun short shows like the Big Top Circus for the younger kids. And it really helped us expand our thinking on the scheduling of classes. They don't always have to be a whole semester, and we could still get a lot of benefit from that. Some 8th grade opportunities coming up are our 8th graders have met with our high school counselors, and they're looking at their schedules for next year, their program of studies. They're meeting with them, and that's really exciting. And our school counselor has also taken 8th graders to visit CCV and some field trips to get out and ask questions and see some more places of higher learning and different things that our 8th graders might be interested in. The Hartford VOTEC is also one of their annual trips. We have completed our YRBS for this year, and we have also...
What is our YR?
Youth Risk Behavior Survey, sorry.
Thank you.
That's done in Vermont every 2 years, and that's for starting at 6th grade, not elementary, right?
Not elementary.
6th through 12th grade. And we have a little bit of that in our next presentation, some of the results. And we also completed our Vermont, as well as the others have said, our Vermont assessment tests, state assessment tests. We're only in the makeup assessment phase right now, some students who are absent. So we're working on that. Students have worked really hard on that and put in a lot of effort, and it's been great. And like you heard before, it's a lot of days of testing. Some students are ready to go plow through a couple sessions, but the teachers try to space it out so it doesn't feel like too much. And then lastly, as Tracy said, we have some transitions planned with Mr. McPhillips here for Albert Bridge students to come to Windsor, kind of transition days and shadow days, as well as our 5th graders coming across the hall to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And we're working with Tracy and I and our school counselors in all 3 places to make that happen. What I have here for pictures, we have our monthly student of the month group down in the bottom left corner, some pictures of the Big Top Circus actors. The third picture is our March Madness 7th and 6th graders on the court. In the right bottom corner is one of our days that our 8th grade ELA students just finished The Outsiders, and they were very excited to come dressed in costume to celebrate the end of that unit on The Outsiders. And then we have the group that did the leading of the Nana's books in the top right corner, and all the books on most of the books from the foundation are based on Alzheimer's and dementia, and helping people understand that. So that's what I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you. High school updates. We were represented at the state science fair, and we had 3 ladies, Maddie Halsworth, Cassie Clark, and Roxy Sherwin, that were awarded at the state science fair for their work done here at Windsor. Our theater this spring, the choir, the theater, and the band classes combined, and they took students on the field trip to Northern Stage to see the musical Waitress. And the intent was to show students their professional counterparts, and a musical was able to combine all three contents into one performance. Afterwards, the students had the opportunity to sit down, ask questions, and have feedback from the professionals there. Our girls state basketball won the state championship. Our March intensives have wrapped up. They will be our student presentation at the May or the June board meeting. They're getting that together now. We are hoping that we have all of our we will have all of our March intensives for next year set before the end of this year. Our intent is to bring more experiences. The feedback that we've gotten from kids is I won't be allowed to go on a trip out of the country, but I would be allowed to go on a trip within the country. So we're hoping to do two. We're looking at Washington, D.C. and possibly New York, and then kind of some one-day trips along around the Upper Valley that would match up with whatever the March intensive is. Steve Malloy has taken our instructional team leader position, and that will open up a full-time teaching position in our building. It will be in the history department, but what we're hoping for, due to our needs, is to have that be a point to teach 2 history classes and then have 3 classes for intervention. One of those interventions being having someone trained in restorative circles and then having the time in their schedule to do so. I believe Christine's going to talk later in the meeting about additional staffing changes, but we did get another one today. That means that we're going to have to advertise for a theater teacher for next year, which is heartbreaking for us, given all the good that I reported this year on our theater program. But we will be advertising for that next year, and that is just due to a commute, an hour and a half commute each way.
All right, thanks, Kate. I am up next. My report is not nearly as fun as what you just heard. First up, I just want to bring to your attention, Lori's added dates to your calendars. September is the second Monday, and March is the second Monday due to holiday and the election, just so you have that on your radar.
Yep.
I wanted to give you a quick legislative update. There's a lot happening right now, but I wanted you to be aware that House Ed did release H454 with a 7-4 vote on March 28th. This particular legislation is primarily based on the VSA, which is the Vermont Superintendent Association's timeline and framework for incremental change in Vermont's education system. And this was also supported by the Vermont School Boards Association. So basically, the bill aims to implement gradual change. As you know, there have been lots of proposals for transformation. This one includes district sizes of 4,000 students, or SU sizes of 4,000 students, class sizes of 12, I think K1, minimum class sizes, 15 in the elementary, and 18, I believe, in the high school, if I recall. It also convenes adds members to the commission, and some appointed, some retired superintendents or retiring superintendents, I believe, to really create a thoughtful plan of where district consolidation can and should happen. And in this bill, I believe that report would be due back to the legislature in December of next year, December of 2025. That's what I know about that. I'll keep you posted. Last week, the House Ways and Means Committee continued work on its education finance proposal, which will be added to in H454, which I believe will be some foundational formula coming to us. I did want to just include that the governor did release a statement. I'm just going to read it to you. He wants to be upfront with legislatures. He will not support adjourning the session without a bill to transform the new funding system, establish a new government structure, those being SUs, and where those lines are drawn, whether it's 5 districts across the state, or I've heard 12, I've heard 20. So he's saying he will not adjourn until something is in place and there's a an implementation timeline. So more to come, I'm sure. Elizabeth, please give us what you know since you're there.
Yeah, I'm actually up at the Capitol right now. First of all, the governor can say all he wants about when he thinks we should adjourn, but it's not up to the governor at all. So, and the H-474 did go through the House Education, then it went to Ways and Means. I think it's supposed to be voted out of Ways and Means tomorrow. We will get all legislators will get a kind of training on it tomorrow, and then it should come to the floor on Wednesday.
Great. And anything you learned, you can share with us. That'd be awesome.
It has a foundation formula of starting at $13,000 and then weighted for the pupil weights. But more importantly, what it does do, which I think is actually really important, is that it takes the homestead and it leaves homesteads as they are. It changes one of the things they debated for a long time was it changes the pace of reevaluation, so it's not every 5 years, so it doesn't have as big of it has less of an impact and less of a shock to families. It'll be done statewide, but more importantly, they created I think 9 different categories for non-homestead, so that and they expanded the definition of commercial to include any residential property that earns money. So, in other words, Airbnbs. And so they created all these different new categories so that it's able to more appropriately capture second homeowners, capture the mushy commercial market, and it works out the property taxes in a much fairer way. I think that's actually really just as important as if not more, than the changes being made on the education committee side.
Awesome. Thanks, Elizabeth. I wanted to just quickly update you. Some of you may have heard there was a request for superintendents to do a Title VI certification that came to us on Friday afternoon. Over the weekend, I think there was a lot of discussion and conversation and a lot of advocacy around this. And so this afternoon, and I know Elizabeth was involved in that, so thanking her publicly. We were told just about, I don't know, right before this meeting started that superintendents will not be asked to provide individual certification, that the state will send a statewide letter and reject conditions or assurances that are not supported by the current law. So that is good news. And we'll see what that letter looks like. There are some model letters coming out from other states that Vermont can certainly use as a template. And then lastly, for me, the quarterly report is in the portal. It's linked. I can tell you just briefly that, let's get to it. Currently, there's an unassigned fund balance, which is good, of about $2 million. So we are, not all the revenue is in, and obviously not all the expenditures have happened, but we're in good shape. Larry wants me to share with you that next year he's working on a different reporting mechanism, which will account for the revenue. Like, we encumber a lot of the expenses, and we can encumber the revenues as well, so that in the first quarter it doesn't look like we're over budget by millions of dollars. So he is working on that for next year. So, but we are in good shape. Okay, let me stop sharing this. Okay. All right, back to you, Davis.
All right. Thanks, Christine and all of our lead learners here. All right, so we are on to 6, which is our items for discussion, followed by motions if needed. And our first item is field trip approval for a field trip that is taking students out of the country. So who will be speaking to that today?
I believe
I will be speaking to that.
All right, Mr. Stamelman.
I have a little presentation prepared. If I share my screen, will people be able to see that?
Yep, I think so.
Yes.
I hope so. There we go. Yeah, we can see that good.
All right, everyone can see that?
Yes.
All right, so I'm Brian Stamelman. I'm the band director at Windsor. I am here because I'm hoping to get approval for a trip to London in July of 2026 for fine art students. We'll be going through a tour company, EF Tours. This is our itinerary and some things that it includes, which is 2 theater performances, seeing some like local landmarks, Big Ben, Piccadilly Circus. And we're also hoping to add on a few extra things like going to an opera performance or a philharmonic or something like that for students in music to get to see professional counterparts at like a worldwide level. Let's see. So this through this tour, we have a full-time tour director, and it's led by this person the entire time. They stay with us the whole week. We get 2 theater performances. We get to see the Globe Theater, and all the details are covered. So round trip flights. We get a motor coach while we're there for transportation. They take care of hotels and breakfast and dinner every single day. So we're planning on focusing specifically on fine arts, so theater, music, and art. So we're working with the tour company to add some things like the National Gallery, Battersea Park and Power Station, Covent Garden and Royal Ballet and Opera and more. Our students will be able to see like European architecture, culture, and arts experiences, and get to experience the like really vibrant city of London in contrast to where they live, which is very rural. There's also opportunities. EF is certified, so there's opportunities for students to earn flexible pathway credits. The EF can actually award high school credit for going on this trip. The students would have to do a little bit of work ahead of time and then write a paper on what their experience. So we're hoping to go July 20th through 26th. However, the tour company asks that we have a 3-day buffer on either side, just based on when they can get us flights and everything like that. So that would be July 17th through 29th are the potential dates of this tour. The price per student would be $3,689, which is hefty. So we're gonna try and fundraise as much as we can to allow this to be a more equitable experience. So this tour, it allows students to experience the world and familiar subjects in vastly different environments from our own, offering cultural appreciation, expanding their worldview, and inspiring a future global citizenry. I also have 3 students here at the meeting tonight who are going to tell you a little bit more about what this means specifically to them. So Arabella and Lars, if you'd like to.
I'm Arrow. I'm a senior at Windsor High School. And when Mr. Simmelman brought this idea to me, I fell in love with it immediately because it's not something I will get to experience. It's something that I've always wanted for our band program, and not being able to partake in it will be very sad, but I will be able to help fundraise for this event. And I think it would be great to even watch my little sister, who would be able to go on this trip, and have them get that kind of outside experience. I'm going into music education myself, So the idea of them being able to fundraise and put together a trip for this kind of thing, I think would be very beneficial to other students who want to follow through with music education, music composition, other things like that.
All right. So I'm Lars. I'm just in general really excited for this trip. I've been lucky enough to have the opportunity to be able to do a lot of traveling in my life. So I've seen a lot of really cool places, learned a lot of really cool things. I've never been to London, and I'm just super excited to be able to learn its really super rich history and super rich culture, be able to witness where William Shakespeare became a thing. And it may not look like it, but I'm a very big theater guy. So William Shakespeare, he's kind of like my jam. I like William Shakespeare, and so it's really cool to be able to see where he did all of his Shakespeareing, and also it's always nice to have some fish and chips. They're pretty good.
My name is Bella. I'm a freshman. My name is Bella. I'm a freshman at Windsor High School. And when I first heard about this trip, I thought it was a really cool idea to be able to go to a separate country. I've never been outside of the state mostly, so that was a really cool idea for me to be able to leave the country. I've never been on a plane before, so I think that's really cool. Also, the opportunities are insane. Broadway shows, I love Broadway shows. I think it's the coolest thing in the world. Again, you can take architecture and just learn a lot of information about it. So it's a way to incorporate learning, but also have a lot of fun to do it. And I think that's really cool. And it's London, so there's lots of things in it. And yeah, I think it's really cool that all of us as a group would be able to walk around London and see all kinds of shows and eat all kinds of foods. And yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I have a question. How many students are you thinking would be part of this group?
This trip would be open to all band, choir, theater, and art students in the school. We need at least 10 students to sign up for the trip in order to make it cost effective for the tour company and everything. Right now I'm thinking between 12 and 18, especially depending on who as adults are able to go on the trip for chaperoning.
Thank you.
I have one question. What are some of the fundraising ideas that you have? Because I know that is a pretty pricey trip, and I'd love to be able to help out with it. I'm just interested if you have anything cooking right now.
I haven't done a ton. We just got done doing a bunch of fundraising, but I'm hoping to do some repeats of what we did in this fall to raise money for our music technology. So we'll be hoping to do concession stands at games, running bake sales, raffles at our concerts. I do a showcase in the spring that we use as a fundraiser. So some of that money would help go towards this trip. I'm also going to look for some grants around that can help pay for these trips. Hit up the Burn Foundation, a couple other organizations that might help pay for that, and see what we can do. I have my student leadership group, Triam, which is our Music Honor Society, is kind of like our fundraising group. So I was going to present it to them, see what ideas they had for fundraising for this trip, what they thought would work, especially since I'm newer to the area. A lot of these kids know the area a lot better than I do, so they know what works, they know what doesn't work.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Stamelman or our students? All right, and I think we need to take a vote to approve this. So I will.
They're on eggs.
The best way to say it. So I will take a motion to approve the trip to London for July 2025.
26.
2026.
This is Amy. So moved.
Second, Megan.
All right, thanks. Any further discussion?
Sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. And I can't wait to see your fundraising so I can support it. If there is no further discussion, I will, I think this is when we can do a simple voice vote on again. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, all those opposed? All right, any abstentions? All right, so it is approved.
Great job.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brian. Very exciting stuff.
Very
All
exciting.
right. So with that, we are on to a review of the YRBS 2023 data.
Yes, that's going to be Tracy. Tracy, do you want to share your screen or would you like me to share mine?
If you have that one deck and you don't mind sharing, maybe we can just go with that. So then the other stuff is in there too.
I'm just going to have
Thank
to get.
you. Otherwise, I can pull it up either way.
Oh, that's fine.
Thanks.
Get to the right place.
And while you're pulling that up, thank you, Christine. I'll just share for anyone that I have not yet met. My name is Tracy Price. I'm our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Coordinator. Nice to be here with y'all. So I'm going to just share out a little bit of a snapshot from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. What they didn't do in this report is they didn't actually have an executive summary. I think in the last time they had an executive summary and a lot of the information was pulled from there. So just have a little bit of data that I pulled out, especially in light of a conversation around bullying. A couple things to note about YRBS. I think Colleen had mentioned maybe earlier, it's something that happens every 2 years. And it's self-reported. So these are students who are self-reporting behaviors. In a couple places, we don't have enough data to actually disaggregate it or see how it disaggregates around demographics, and I'll share just a couple of those. Yeah, Christine, if you don't mind advancing to the next slide, that would be great. So here you can see, because there are different reports. And in fact, I realized that some of the information I shared at the SU board meeting was really taken from Windsor County. So I'll clarify where that shows up. But we have breakdowns for Windsor Southeast Middle School. We have it for high school. Neither of those this year. I think in the past they were actually disaggregated by groups and demographics like LGBTQ+, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, and then folks on IEPs 504s. It didn't show up that way in any of our data for WSESU. So it makes it a little bit difficult for us to really know what's happening, again, by demographics. So I did bring in a couple of data sets that look at Windsor County as a whole, and then there's other data sets that talk about Vermont as a whole. So you can see some of the patterns in the data, and we can imagine, I think if we were, we can imagine that maybe some of our students who are LGBTQ+ or BIPOC, or on IEPs, maybe having some of those same patterns of experience, if that makes sense. Okay, so if you can advance to the next slide, please. Again, just pulled out a couple things on bullying. So this one is bullying in Vermont. So this is taken at the state level, and this is for high school students. So thinking about high school students self-reporting, about 1 in 5 high school students reported getting bullied in the last 30 days. And female students, younger students, LGBTQ+ students, BIPOC students, students with IEPs were found to be statistically more likely to report getting bullied during the past 30 days. And it looks like, they said compared to 2021 and 2023, being bullied has statistically increased. So bullying, according to YRBS, has statistically increased across our state. Okay, how about the next slide, please? So this one is also just looking at high school students. That also, this is students who reported bullying someone else. So overall, 1 in 8 high school students report bullying someone else. Demographic breakdown is a little bit different here. Male students, younger students, BIPOC students, students with IEP, statistically more likely to report bullying somebody else during the past 30 days. Again, this is self-reported data, and this also looks like between 2021 and 23, bullying someone else statistically increased. Okay, how about the next one, please? Also just thinking about mental health, and this is also looking at high school students, saying that during the past 30 days, a third of high school students, so 34% of high school students said their mental health was not good most of the time or always. Female students, LGBTQ plus students, more than 2 times as likely as male students and heterosexual cisgender students to report poor mental health. And there's also a little bit more information about some more groups. I guess the good news is that it says between 2021 and 23, experiencing poor mental health did not statistically change. But we know, I feel like a lot of people are talking about mental health crises, right, with our youth. So there's that. And the next slide, please, Christine. These are the information that I shared. This is from Windsor County. So looking across Windsor County, all of the students across Windsor County, these were just some data sets that seemed interesting because they were statistically significant. So anything that's marked with an asterisk is statistically significant, and these are all broken down by demographics. Again, we don't have the breakdown for demographics for students in our high school and middle school, and they said it's because if it's less than 50 students that they don't report it, because it has to be more than 50 students, I guess, in order for them to use those breakdowns in demographics. So again, I mean, these patterns in Windsor County, again, seem to be reflective of what I just shared about statewide data. So about students feeling bullied in the last 30 days or did not go to school because they felt unsafe at school, right? So students feeling unsafe in Windsor County, you can see it's female, LGBTQ plus, and BIPOC students who have a statistical significance to feeling more unsafe at schools. And again, it's just, I pulled out things that seem statistically significant and interesting. So you can see that there are some trends there, right? Especially if you look down the column, those first 4 rows of female students, almost all of the column for LGBTQ plus students, some for BIPOC students, and for some for those on IEPs, right? So there's something different that's being experienced by students with those identities. Okay, how about the next slide, please?
That's the next one.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I'm like, oh, what else is... Yeah. Okay. So this is Windsor County middle schools. Again, you can see some of the same patterns, right? That females and LGBTQ plus students, and in some cases BIPOC students, they don't break down middle schools by IEPs and 504s at all in YRBS data. So that's why you're not seeing that here. But you can see some of those same patterns in the data for Windsor County. All right, and I think I've got maybe 1 or 2 more slides that pull out some information from WSESU. So this is just information I pulled out because these were some of the places where our SU had statistically significant data scores than the state. And so what you're looking at on this slide, all of what is in yellow are things that could be potentially more concerning for us with our SU than the data from the state. The things that are in green are things that are a little bit more favorable, right? That students in our SU are experiencing. So fewer students, like statistically less students in our high schools reported to have ridden with a driver who had been drinking in the last 30 days, right, than the data number for the state. So I just pulled out, again, all of the places in our high school data that is statistically significant in one way from our state data. So it's kind of a mix, right, of some things that have to do with, I think generally for both our high school students and middle school students, they seem a little bit less concerned about the impacts of things like vaping or smoking marijuana than the state reports. And then Christine, if you can go to the last one. Next slide is the last one. It's the same. I did the same thing for middle school. So again, just pulling out places where our students are reporting something that's statistically different, statistically significantly different than the state level. And again, the green are sort of more favorable, right? It looks like our middle school students seem to report wearing sunscreen, right? More than students at the state level. And those yellow areas are places where we might, we could consider looking at, like, what is different about our schools? Why is this different, right, than what students are experiencing at the state level? So that's the data that I pulled. Again, just trying to make those, looking for, like, how do we compare, when we think about our SU, our county, and then also at the state level, and tease some of that out. So I'm going to pause there and just see, if there are any, or maybe pass it back to you, Davis, or I don't know if there are questions that I can answer.
The only thing that I would add, maybe you can confirm this, the reason, in years past, the reason that we've gotten for not having reporting out at that for our building level is for de-identification. I think with numbers that small, the concern is that you could ostensibly in the community identify which students might have been responding, and that's something that would be, in this kind of survey, really detrimental.
Yeah, it could be. Although I think that a couple years ago, I feel like we got that data, and we had that data, and our data was similar to the county, right? So I remember seeing that it was like 30% of students identified as LGBTQ, right? Which is the same as the county, which is the same as the state. So I'm not sure, why.
Yeah.
For this one, we didn't see it, but you're right. I mean, they said, I did email them, and they said if it was less than 50, then they don't report on that. But, it's probably similar patterns. Although I will, the screen that you're looking at, the last point on that one was, ever felt that they were treated badly or unfairly in school because of their race or ethnicity. And you can see, like, RSU is statistically, I'm sorry, it's lower. It's lower than the state self-reporting on that, which is, it's interesting. It's curious.
I'm just a little confused because I printed this offline, which is the 2023, and it's narrowed down by SU. So
it is, yes.
It's not Windsor County, it's SU.
Yes, this info is from SU data. That's from that same report. It's just that for our SU level data, they didn't break it down by demographics, by LGBTQ plus, by BIPOC students, by IEPs.
Yeah, I'm referring to the information you showed on the previous slide where you said that it was Windsor County schools, but I'm looking at data for WSESU. So I'm
They have both. They have both. You can look at it by county and by SU.
Right, so I'd rather see the SU for this presentation than the county, if that makes sense. That's my question. Like, I have it here, so I'm just confused.
The only reason I was sharing the county data and the state data is because we don't get to see the demographics because they weren't significant in Windsor, in our schools. So that was why it was just to see, like, okay, if we can see what those patterns are like at the state level and at the county level, we can be curious about whether those same patterns are happening in our schools. So that was the only point of taking a little bit of each of those to share.
Thank you, I understand.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's the lowest possible level where that data is broken out.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. Well, thank you for sharing the breakdown of that, Tracy. I think that is a good segue into our bullying conversation. That provides us with some data that we see every other year. I'm glad this came out in time for this conversation because I think it gives some, it kind of quantifies a lot of what we are talking about. And it shows a lot of the really concerning trends that we see in some of the increases that I think unfortunately have been reflected in, student and parent and staff experience. So We are going to move on to C, which is the conversation on bullying.
Yep. What do you want to share? Let me get back to the right slide. Okay.
I have a question. So this is bullying. You said every other year it's the survey's taken?
Every 2 years, they
Every 2
do
years.
this state survey.
Is there a reason why it's not done every year since the numbers are going up?
So,
And why it's not being done in the elementary and the middle school and well, middle school some, but not the elementary? At some schools, the elementary goes up until 8th grade.
so this survey is carried out by the CDC. So it's a nationwide survey that breaks down to the local level. So that's part of why we have like a 2-year lag on it. It's a massive data set that they then break down. And what Tracy showed us too, just for a little bit of context, that's a very, very small slice of the questions they ask. It's I don't know how many pages it is, but I've looked through the whole thing and it's like, I would say probably hundreds of questions, maybe.
I think so.
Yeah, so it's a pretty giant data set that we're working on that, which is why it comes out in that form.
And I think in all of our schools, all 6th through 8th graders also take it.
Even if it's like a K to 8 school or K to 6, the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders take it.
All right. Yep.
All right. Colin, you're going to start?
So we put together a presentation just on what we've been working on here at school, just wanting to be really clear. The definition of bullying, overt active combination of acts, including any act conducted by electronic means directed against a student by another student or group of students, and that is reported over time, intended to ridicule, humiliate, intimidate the student, and occurs during the school day, on school property, on a school bus, or at a school-sponsored activity, or before or after the school day, on a school bus or a school-sponsored activity, or does not occur during the school day, on school property, on a school bus, or on a school-sponsored activity, and can be shown to pose a clear and substantial interference with another student's right to access educational programs. So we do get involved even if it is happening outside of school, but the concern comes to school and affects kids. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at my slide and you advanced it, sorry. The acknowledgement that for us as an admin team, that it is hard and important work for all schools and we are fully committed to the work. We are going to share a process under the understanding and the initiatives and allow time to listen to all of you here. And it is important for us to say that HHB, our hazing, harassment, and bullying is a confidential process and outcomes are not shared with parties involved. And when we receive a report, it is made by a student, staff, or parent. Administration gathers the information to determine if the case meets the criteria to open an HHB investigation. Parents are contacted whether or not an investigation is opened. If investigation is open, parents receive a letter within 24 hours and an investigator and determiner are assigned. An administrator has 5 days to complete the investigation. At the onset of the investigation, the administrator puts supportive measures in place. If it is substantiated, consequences imposed, which could include education, repair, detention, suspension. Safety plans put in place, communication with all staff, and follow-up as scheduled. And this is the data since 2021 of substantiated cases. You want to talk about the barriers, Jeff?
Yeah. Can you go back a slide, please? I can tell you that your slide is inaccurate.
I mean,
we had one for my kid in 2023, 24, so that's not, you guys aren't sharing accurate information.
So the substantiated means that you initiated an investigation and it was found to be accurate?
Correct. They'd have to meet all the gateways in order to be substantiated.
Just looking. So I don't know where this data is coming from, but I think it's really irresponsible.
We need to look back at the data and.
So the 2020 through 24 data comes from the state report, which comes from, we have to report to the state, substantiated cases. So that was pulled from the data from the state. If it's inaccurate, it's inaccurate. It was inaccurately reported.
It probably merits an investigation on your end.
Yeah. In this year, I've started collecting data. We as a team are collecting data so that we can have a handle on what's going on. So the 2024, 2025 data, we're compiling in our own spreadsheet.
Is that one not completed, the 24, 25?
No, not yet, because we're still on 24, 25.
Okay.
But the other years were pulled from the state report.
So and maybe you'll cover this. So if I step on toes, feel free to cut me off. But how is that handled on your end, Christine? So when the administrators process this information, you review it to make sure that it's accurate before it goes to the state, or you just trust that everything is right?
I have not until this year. Now I'm keeping track, but I have not in the past. No.
Okay. I know from our experience anecdotally, the previous slide that talked about the timeline, that is almost never met. The investigation almost never wraps up in 5 days. We almost never got a letter. In some cases, it was weeks, and we had to push to get information, which was communicated to you as well. So I know that you're in the loop on that part. It makes me concerned that that information is intentionally inaccurate to downplay the crisis that's happening.
I think the definition of substantiated needs to be addressed, because we've also had cases that there was a finding of fact that something did occur in counseling or whatever you want to call it, restorative practices, educational practices, with all students involved, mentoring, whatever you want to call it. So I'd consider that a substantiated case that the school had to pursue it further by going through a training or a remediation of the students or understanding or a meeting of all parties involved. So I believe that, to me, is the definition of substantiation, that the school had to take further action. If no action was warranted afterwards, I think that would be unsubstantiated. But when further action is needed by the school to address this issue, sensitivity training and whatever else, I think that should be considered substantiated.
I would concur with that. I know, Jennifer, that's something that we dealt with as a family and ABS. Like, we had more incidences than are reflected on that slide, just us. So
Many more investigations happened.
right, but not just investigations, right? Investigations that led to restorative circles. Like, one incident dragged out and reoccurred and hit more than 0 or more than 1. Like, we were here 3 different times in 2 weeks. But that says 1 for the entire school for that year. We were more than 1.
Were those substantiated cases?
Yeah.
Were those substantiated?
We had 2 in 23, 24 that, yes.
They led to restorative circles where our student and the other student met with administrators to work through it. And
No, we got the letter that said it was found, yes, and all that stuff.
In 22, 23?
23, 24.
Okay.
Twice. So, and I know we're not the only family in the school, so, I mean, this is like, I brought something to say, so I don't want to take up time now, but I'm just saying, I'm already upset, because this is, why do a presentation that's not even remotely accurate? It's just.
right. You know, other than being here to support, I'm here mostly because I'm frustrated with the lack of communication. And it's to the point where it feels intentional, because it's been communicated on our end many times, right? But proper communication involves both parties. And I don't know if it's not being received or if it's being received and disregarded, but it is past time to fix it, and it's not happening.
Same with us, same with us.
So I'll look into that, the other data. Yeah, absolutely. But we as a administrative team recognize we need to start keeping some consistent data across the SU so we know what's going on. So that did start this year. And I can look at the other years. It did come from the state report. I think each principal had I was a principal, so I know, had their own system of collecting that data because they have to report it at the end of each year. But it wasn't consistent across the SU. It is now.
Elizabeth?
Thanks. What data points are you collecting now, Christine?
We are collecting, let me picture my spreadsheet in my head. When an incident is reported, if an investigation is opened, whether it's substantiated or not, whether we need legal counsel involved. We're doing it for HHB and Title IX. Who the investigator is, how much time is spent on the investigation, other resources that are needed. I think that's about all that's on that.
Sounds right.
All the information that we're collecting at this point.
You don't collect information like the types of incidents, whether it's physical or verbal, or whether it's harassment based on a protected class or harassment based on, I don't know. You collect that kind of data?
Yes, we definitely know what the incidents are and who's involved. Yeah.
So will the 2024-2025 real results come out at the end of the school year?
The results from this year?
Yeah.
The final numbers when this year's ends.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yep.
I heard on one of the slides that the outcomes were not shared. Why?
The outcomes are not shared with both parties, right? So if, the outcome, whether it's substantiated or not, is communicated. We don't share what the consequences are from family to family. So maybe that wasn't worded correctly.
Okay.
But yeah, the outcomes are shared.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to look into that data.
In the interest in getting through the rest of this, and I appreciate it being a little bit more, kind of popcorn, just given the subject matter and some of the questions that have come up and the discrepancies in the data that are showing up. For the rest of the presentation, if something does come up, I'm gonna keep my eyes kind of over here, and if something comes up, just raise your hand and I'll recognize you to keep things moving through. We'll go back to our administrators here.
So we were going to talk about the barriers that come up for why the reporting, complete understanding of what bullying is and is not. The legal aspects of HHB are what we follow the policy that we have from the board. We realize that students may not report incidents, that it can definitely be around fear and things that might feel like they could get worse. That there can be a current climate, it can be a climate of lack of inclusion or climate of inclusion, making people feel excluded. Perceived inconsistent response to exhibited behaviors because it's a confidential process. People don't know what the outcomes may be. Unkind and hurtful behaviors that do not meet the definition of bullying that are our handbook code of conduct that don't meet bullying or harassment definitions. The ongoing initiatives to address bullying that we are doing across the SU. We work together as an admin team to have consistent major and minor behavior handbook across the SU. The restorative circle training took place last year at Windsor Middle School for about, I think, 6 to 8 sessions with the Human Rights Commission. And we have the hazing, harassment, and bullying training for staff and students. We have our coordinator, Tracy Price, in support and resource. And our culture action team leaders, our equity coaches, are a part of the culture atmosphere of the school, which support the student lighthouse team committees, lighthouse committees. And we also incorporate WISE with parent permission into our schools to discuss relationships and bullying and healthy relationships.
Elizabeth?
Thanks. Colleen, can you go back a slide, please, for just a second? So I'm not sure you mentioned both the state law and our SU policy. Which one is it that you are that you're guided by?
State law is where our training is through.
I'm sorry?
Somebody from the state, we do trainings through people from this who are supported by state law. So nobody comes and looks at our policies and trains us on that. So we go through training with legal counsel.
So that's the Heather Lynn piece. But so do you have any training for staff on our policy?
We do nothing specific on it.
I think we did this year.
They have,
We did.
At the beginning of the year, they go for
Beginning
a
of
review
the year. Yep.
So you had a training on the policy. So are you collecting data based only on the state law, or are you collecting data on the policy as well? So, I mean, how do we know whether our policy is effective if your guidepost is the state law?
I think that we follow the policy, Elizabeth. I mean, we get trained by legal counsel, but they're training us on the policy, which comes from the law.
So wait, go back. So you just said, so Heather Lynn comes and does a training for you on the law. What the procedure is on the law, but you also have Heather Lynn do a training on our policy?
No, not our policy, but our policy, I believe, follows the law. So we're doing trainings through BizBit, and Heather Lynn is the presenter. She doesn't come to us. We
go to her.
We go to her, but she's training us on HHB, the law, which the policy follows the law.
But the policy is separate from the law.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any training I'm sure that the training for the law is required. Do you have a required training on the policy?
The staff has the training on the policy for sure.
Yes,
every year.
Required.
Every year required.
The staff does. Yes, we do train the staff on the policy.
So 100% of the staff have been trained on the policy every year.
I believe, and Tracy Price can help me, that we did mandatory training on HHB for staff at the beginning of the year.
On the law or on the policy?
Policy.
Okay, can you go to the next slide, please?
Yeah, I just want to confirm that. Tracy, is that?
I mean, it would have been what Angie and Tina did during the all staff coming back.
Okay. I'm going to look to confirm that, Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you. Can you go to the next slide?
Yeah.
We also had additional PD days.
Yeah.
Okay. So the restorative circles training, that was what the Human Rights Commission did?
No.
Did I get the wrong name?
Yeah, that was not correct. That was John from
Greater Falls.
Yeah,
Justice
Greater Falls.
Center.
Yeah, Greater Falls.
Okay. How many people attended that?
That started with about 22 middle schoolers in about, I think, 6 to 8 sessions. Does that sound right, Tracy?
Okay. Were staff also trained on that?
We had that was one of the PD options. That was one of the choice options for staff.
Okay. What I would like to know is, so consistent major and minor behavior handbook across the supervisory union. Have all staff been trained on the handbook? Is that a requirement?
Training on the handbook?
Yeah.
Major, minor? I wouldn't say they've been trained on it, but they have access to it and they can review it for sure.
Okay, but the question is, do they? Like, if they're not in a training for it, I'm one of my concerns is that a lot of these things are not mandatory, and therefore, what I have witnessed is people just leaving when they have the option, and so that creates inconsistency, and inconsistent culture and inconsistent all the way down. It's sort of like the thing with the severe and pervasive law. Everybody should be trained on that thoroughly and completely. Everybody, every single person should be trained on all of these. Yes, and ask the parents who checked the box on the form that said they read the handbook, whether they actually read the handbook out loud to their kids the way they checked the box saying that they did. I mean, I appreciate that you've done a lot of work to create these programs, but I worry that the staff themselves aren't taking part in them, and that creates that creates an inconsistency, and therefore creates an inconsistent culture in those schools.
Can I talk for a sec?
Yeah, am I out of line here? I mean,
No, I think that I don't think you're out of line. So I just wanted to say, based along what you just said, and based on things that have happened in the high school year, and I had said to Christine, I want to get to the heart of the issue through this bullying presentation. I think a lot of what I see in the high school is somewhat what you're talking about with inconsistencies, a difficulty in calling out what is hurtful behavior versus bullying. And our first step for that adult consistency is that we have gotten together a team of all of our adult advisors who do a student leadership team. And we're asking for exactly, Christine was at the meeting, exactly what you're saying. We want to get all the adults on the same page and roll that out for what next year. And I'm talking on the same page for everything about HFB, about the culture, about what participation in activities and everything looks like. So I just want to say I recognize what you're saying, and that's the step that we're taking to address kind of at the high school level.
Thank you. I mean, I do think that some of these, or all of these things, this is a really big problem. And I only know anecdotally from my family and from hearing from other families, but this is and I know that you know that this is a big problem. And to not have mandatory training on these things is really, there's a big hole here. And I want you to step it up. This is not right. I mean, it's not right that people have this as an optional thing, and then wonder why this is taking place. I'll be quiet now. I'm sorry.
No, they're great points, Elizabeth. And I know that we've been Tracy and I have been meeting about what policies really, the really important ones that we really need to explicitly share with staff and talk through and explain. And it's really about finding how and when we're going to do that. And the when is a big piece. We do not have a lot of, in the grand scheme of school, there's a lot that has to be communicated and shared. And I don't know that this has been the priority that it needs to be. So what you're saying is not out of line at all. It's something that we've already started talking about. So appreciate it. I think we have a couple more slides just to talk about other things we're trying to do to address some of the issues.
Mm-hmm.
Things that we've added this year were equity tickets to collect data and shed light on day-to-day incidents, restorative circles training for staff, Human Rights Commission training on harassment and prevention training. That was a PD day, right?
Yep, it wasn't all staff. It was some staff. Oh no, she did a full staff, and then people could break out in the afternoon.
We started as a morning
full
session,
staff.
which
Yep.
is for everybody.
Yep.
Ongoing and intentional hazing, harassment, and bullying training for staff and students. Bringing in the guest speakers that we heard about earlier. Ryan's story presentation for 5th grade through 12th grade was about online bullying and family story. And the disability awareness presentation, just always looking to incorporate things into the regular classrooms in learning and making connections to how, when we're learning about disabilities, how it's connected to our policies that we keep in school.
Elizabeth?
So the person who did the restorative, I assume that the restorative training circles are still part of, oops, it's telling me to put my hand down. The restorative training circles, is that all part of the January 6th day that you did, Tracy? Okay.
Yeah, there was, yeah.
That was just for the one day then, the restorative circles?
Well, they came back, they did the early release day that we just had. And I know Wethersfield had their support staff. It was open to anybody to participate in that. And then also last year, Sergio at the elementary school did a couple, I think he did 3 like afternoon sessions for teachers. But yes,
So that's another question. Are support staff also receiving all of these?
They are receiving any professional development that is done at the SU level. They are included in, yes. Their contract allows it now.
Great. Because one of the reasons that I am a legislator today is that I want to make sure that every single person who comes into contact with a student has the same training. Because it's really important, from bus drivers to lunch ladies to every single person in between. And that's why I'm here, because I figured I would be able to get it mandated. It's not, because it's not possible. But now that you're the superintendent, Christine, it's really important to make sure that it's consistent for everybody, that the adults are modeling everywhere all the time for students.
Yep.
And it's not, this is separate from the bullying complaints, but this is like the actual scaffolding that is missing. And it's really concerning to me. And I do appreciate I do appreciate the efforts that you've taken. But I think, for example, the Human Rights Commission coming and presenting, that was the thing down in Springfield that I think you said that 4 people went to with you?
No, yes, there were 4 people that went to that, but in January we had them come and they did a training. I think that was all staff for what was it, an hour and a half, Tracy?
They did. That was an afternoon, so it wasn't with all staff. But I mean, Elizabeth, I think to your point, you know, we're already looking at the schedule coming back to school, and we have a block of time reserved that hopefully, you know, the Human Rights Commission can fill, so that we're starting off the year, you know, with everybody on the same page and getting what you're talking about.
Because when you're talking about hazing, harassment, and bullying, what the Human Rights Commission says, okay, then let me just explain something to you from up here, the state level. We don't have a Justice Department in the United States government anymore. We don't. And we don't have a Justice Department in our education, our federal education system. So what we have now, all we have is the Human Rights Commission as our ceiling, and they can't do it because it requires traumatized kids to have to go and wait 2 years because they're that backed up to go and be re-traumatized by retelling their story to lawyers and then possibly go to court and have to retell their story again. It's not right. It is on us to take care of this at our own local level. And I'm sorry to be hard on you guys, but the Human Rights Commission actually coming in and offering to train you on how to stop this from going on. Not that Heather Lynn's presentation isn't important, but it needs to be balanced with how to fix this. Sorry.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Kate has her hand up. No apologies. Kate.
I kind of want to say, and you know, to Elizabeth, I hear you and I'm with you, and I will publicly say right now that I was very wrong. I was one of the people that said these equity tickets, they're going to have us chasing after so much stuff because they're going to be anonymous or people are going to use them as a joke. And I said, my staff made these equity tickets, and I said to Tracy time and time again, are the best thing that has ever happened to us, because all my worst fears didn't come true. I've only had one anonymous one the whole year. I was able to track it down by timestamp. I've only had one time that 2 kids tried to make a joke out of it. But having just that outlet for the reporting that is easy, that is staff and students are able to, has brought to light the day-to-day stuff that wasn't getting reported. And so I hear you. I know I wanted to say that has been one of the greatest gifts, and I think that will lead to more changes that you are looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
You said that support staff is now getting training. Is that new this year? Like, was this the first year that's?
I think it's the second year. We
had some days where they were trained in the past. Yeah. They had less days. So the contract is offering more of the PD days that we all get as a whole SU in their contract.
Yeah. And it's still tricky because there's different professional development that they need. Mm-hmm. So it's differentiating the professional development, figuring out what everybody needs, and then trying to figure out what each group needs. Mm-hmm. So that is high priority on the new curriculum director's task list. And she's helping to plan for next year. So I think there's one more slide. There's things that were.
The last 3 was those 2 students I had mentioned before. All students were invited to be a part of the trainer, but I think they're only taking 2 from each school. And we did get 2 students who are going this week to do that training. And I said they'll come back and share that with the board at a later date this year. And other things we're working to address is making better transitions, making students, helping them to understand what it is going into middle school or high school, making the transitions enough for each student. I've talked to a couple of parents about like 3 shadow days I think we had last year, and going beyond that when any student wants more than that. We also have a lot of time in summer academy to give some personalized attention to students who'd rather see the building when there's not a lot of people around and things like that. So we also have like 4 weeks in the summer academy to do even more individualized transitions to support students who are worried about coming to middle school on top of the planned transition shadow days. And we had, I think we had very small leadership group last year. This year we have 3 in the middle school. I know in the high school we have our lighthouse team in the high school, but in the middle school we have 3 weekly meetings with the student lighthouse team every Tuesday. We have a kindness group that meets every Monday, and we have our student support team of mostly our mental health clinician team who support lunch, a quiet lunch space for anybody who wants it daily. So we have 3 things that are running regularly for leadership groups.
Okay. Stop sharing. Right. So I appreciate the presentation and the commentary on that too. I think that was helpful. I know there's some public comment on this. I'm not going to read the whole spiel again, but just ask that people keep it to 3 minutes. And just in the interest of having that be smooth, what I'll do is when I get to about 2, I'll keep the time here. When it gets to about 2.5, I'll just kind of like flash through and let you.
I don't mean to be rude, but mine is not going to be 3 minutes. And the reason is because I was asked to come here and share this information, and I wrote it down to condense it as much as possible, but it's not going to be 3 minutes. But I've been sharing this information with the board for 1.5 years, and then I was asked to share it here. So respectfully, I'm going to go over 3 minutes.
Okay. No.
And
I think we can
not to
accommodate
be rude, but there's just a lot to share, and I want to share some background. I'm also going to speak for 2 people because my daughter wanted to share, but she's sick. So she asked me to share her story, and then I want to share my concerns. So it's kind of 2 things.
Okay.
Okay. I don't want to go first. I can.
You're both.
Okay. So I wrote this down. I'm Liz Frederick. I have 2 kids in Overbridge right now, 1st grade and 6th grade. And I have a 7th grader in Weathersfield because we had to leave the district in Toll. So that's our background here. I wrote this down, so what I'm going to share is really hard. So our experience in this SU closely aligns with the YRBS survey results that we all saw. And I want to briefly tell my daughter's story with her permission. She's currently 13. She's autistic. She identifies as LGBTQ+, and has a very diverse family. In our schools, multiple schools, she's been repeatedly mocked for her autism, with students calling her stupid, the R word, and making jokes about catching it. She's been repeatedly called gender-based swear words from both boys and girls. She's been harassed verbally and physically by boys. More recently, been told, "Your body, my choice." She has been mocked for her family's political affiliation, been called homophobic slurs, particularly by boys, and has been made fun of over and over again for having a trans family member and told that trans people should cease to exist. So some of this started in 6th grade, starting with a student who was attending ABS through interdistrict choice from Windsor, and then it was piled on by other students. This was reported, the school responded, there were investigations, the behavior continued, there were more investigations, 2 of which were found to be confirmation of bullying. There were restorative practices put into place, there was lots of conversation, there was education. At one point, there was an in-school suspension of an offending student. There was a safety plan put in place, which ultimately failed, and many, many hours of staff time, our time, student learning time was all sunk into this issue, and nothing worked. And, I just want to be clear that all of the staff members, including the principal and the support staff, worked so hard on this issue. But I think that we don't have the system in place to actually deal with this issue when you're dealing with behaviors this severe. My daughter was a high achieving student who suddenly couldn't learn. She couldn't access her education. She didn't feel safe coming to school. Her mental health plummeted and she lost faith in adults and our system to protect her. Finally, after 5 months and no progress, we left the school. To be clear, we left a school that we absolutely loved. We loved this school, a place that was her home since kindergarten, because they were unable to keep the environment safe for her. Like, it's just overwhelming that, to me, it's unbelievable to me that we can't keep students safe, especially in these small schools. Again, I want to acknowledge the effort that was put in, but it became clear that talking and restorative practices were not going to change student behavior. They weren't willing to remove the offending student from disciplining others. So leaving was a hard decision, but it was the only choice we had. Over the next few months, our daughter had to enter into a new school mid-year, carrying a lot of trauma, a feeling of abandonment, and also dealing with the fallout from students who were still reaching out to her from her old school. Eventually, the prolonged stress and the damage to her self-worth nearly took her life. And I don't think people understand how bullying can destroy someone until they experience it with their own child. My daughter is not the only child in our district who struggled to literally survive the experience of being bullied. And the damage rippled out to every other member of our family. Now, changing schools made a huge difference. She's currently thriving academically, has friends, participates in bands, band, chorus, and theater. But that's our background. And this is what she wanted me to share, and this is why I'm so passionate about the issue. I'd like to share my concerns. The YRBS statistics are telling my daughter's story over and over again. We have widespread bullying, horrible mental health for our female and our LGBTQ students. I've also learned that 3 other students have left Windsor this year due to bullying or negative peer interactions, whether they qualified as bullying or not. But either way, 3 students have left this school year because the situation was bad enough they didn't feel safe in school. It's 0 left. To be clear, 0 students have left who have been bullies. Okay, this was data that was gathered from Christine, thank you. It's very frustrating to me to watch the SU board be presented with these statistics a couple weeks ago, and then all of the talk was about equity training and Black History Month projects, and there's no mention of discipline. And I'm not talking about just discipline when things get so bad the school has to open a bullying investigation, because that's also not working. But the day-to-day discipline when kids are being faced with sexist, racist, homophobic, or just plain cruel behavior that goes unchecked, that probably doesn't meet the narrow qualifications of HHP. Things that when I was in school 30 years ago were considered unacceptable, but now are just considered how kids are, or worse, free speech. You guys are completely missing the critical piece here, which is discipline. We need adults to say, this is not how you treat others, and actually mean it. And they need to say it every single time. And we need adults to say, if you're making this environment safe, you're out of here until you can figure out how to treat others with respect. The fact that we're allowing this to just continue and the kids are still here and they're still terrorizing other kids is completely unacceptable. You can tell us that it's happening, but I know it's not happening. When you have stats that tell us that 3 students have been bullied so badly this year that they've left school, and there were 0 expulsions. These 3 are likely just a fraction of what's going on. There were actually comments on a recent Facebook post from several families who have said their child has been bullied or is being bullied at Windsor. Comments about how they can't believe the behaviors they let slide. And I talked to some of these families, and I know that in at least one case, a student was physically assaulted, and unironically, by a student who used to push around my daughter on the kindergarten playground, and he's still in school. This shows a failure of the administration in addressing student behavior, and it shows a failure at keeping kids safe. Sometimes you have got to make a hard choice. Sometimes you have to choose between the bully and the bullied. And it seems like you guys are choosing. You're choosing the bullies. In my view, this all starts and ends with discipline. Like learning happens within the structure that the adults create. Kids need that structure. And speaking of the survey that we were just looking at, there's another slide on that survey that says less than half of students say they don't think their school has clear rules and consequences. This is a discipline failure, a failure to provide structure which students need, and is a huge failure on the part of the administration. More than half the kids don't even know what their behavior expectations are, or what their consequences will be for breaking them. Parents talk and kids talk, so I know for a fact that some of the kids who bullied my daughter are still actively bullying kids at Windsor Middle School and high school. Somehow these students have made it to 7th, 8th, and 9th grade with no lessons learned. What's going to happen when they graduate school and enter the workforce and haven't learned how to respect others who are different from them? 36% of female high school students reported unwanted sexual behaviors perpetrated on them at school. What's going to happen when these young men enter the workforce? Like, this is the job of adults. Our behavior standards in this district are so low, they're practically on the floor. We expect so little of our students and follow through on less. And by doing so, we're greatly underestimating their abilities and their potential. And to be fair to teachers who are amazing and who I know are doing their best in a rough situation, I acknowledge that the majority of these issues start with parents. The school's job is to ensure a safe environment, and the parents' job is to raise kind and respectful kids. Neither of those things are happening. So given the fact that we are, I would say, at a crisis level with bullying and negative behaviors, where is the communication to the parents? Where are the letters to the community? Where are the behavior standards and consequences outlined so parents can actually understand them? Before you say the handbook, there's language in there that's vague at best and buried under all kinds of other stuff. Do you think the parents of these kids are the ones that are coming to meetings and doing their own research on bullying statistics? Email out the stats when you get them to all the parents. These stats that we looked at tonight, email them out. Why are they a secret? There's no transparency here, and apparently even when we have stats shown, they're not even correct. Like, it feels to me like the district is focusing more on their image than on fixing the problem. What is the hesitation in bringing parents into the conversation about behavior expectations and consequences? There's no reason it can't be done. I've even heard several stories where the parents of offending students weren't informed of their child's behavior until it got to the point of an investigation. Or where parents spent 5-6 weeks asking for a situation to be resolved before even getting an email response. What happened to us when we reported inappropriate conduct from a boy at a joint ABS Farm and Wilderness trip? It took us 6 weeks to even get a response from Windsor Middle School. And even then the outcome was, we asked him and he said he didn't do it. No other information provided to us. And I had to email to get a response. So as a parent, I'm begging the principals and the superintendent to actually address student behaviors, not just through, equity trainings for staff, but through actual structure and discipline on the day-to-day and open communication with parents. So my 6th grader, my middle child, who doesn't even fall into any of the high-risk categories for bullying, has already experienced harassment on the bus by Windsor Middle School students. She'll be in 7th grade next year. She's shy and sensitive and kind, and as a parent, I feel really uncomfortable sending her there. Like, I shouldn't feel that way. I don't want to speak for others, but I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. School should be a place where students go to learn and grow and feel respected, not a place where they are torn down, their self-esteem shattered, and their trust in adults evaporated. Thank
you. Any other comments?
Depend on Liz.
You can just say your name.
Yeah, my name is Mark McGuire. I have a son who's 15 this year, and another one who's 12. The 12-year-old still here at Albert Bridge, and my 15-year-old was at Windsor, and we removed him from Windsor due to being assaulted 3 times at the beginning of the school year. He was punched in the back of the head by a student, and the response was, it only lasted 5 seconds. The second time, he was forcibly attempted to throw him down a set of stairs, and The response was the candidates did not see anything. The third one, which resulted in us pulling from the school, involved a Title IX investigation because of his, I don't know exactly what his classification might be. You know, gay, bisexual, whatever, but the investigation took from November till February. And the outcome of the investigation was there was not enough substantiation to warrant a Title IX follow-up, but there was some behavior there that warranted counseling. We couldn't keep our son at Windsor. It was incredibly violent. A little more background. My family's lived in Windsor for 125 years. We've had somebody in the Windsor school system for over 80 years. When his mom and I got together, I was very confident that Windsor School was going to do good for myself, my sisters, my brothers, my parents. It didn't. Kindergarten, he received 3 concussions. 2 of them required medical attention. We pulled him from Windsor School and moved out here to West Windsor because of Albert Bridge. Albert Bridge was an exceptional school for my son. No issues for first grader into the 6th grade. 7th grade, back to Windsor. You had no choice, but school choice was eliminated. And the assaults began again. He said, what was the 7th grade point again, please?
Was that up here?
Yeah.
Oh, he got punched by one student who was a younger grade than him. But pulling down the stairs, him getting down the stairs was the same year, which it wasn't even him who touched the student. It was another student who had touched the kid and grabbed a hold of Aiden and tried ripping him down the stairs. Had he not been holding on to the banister, he would have gone down the stairs. And then the same kid that sexually assaulted him this year used to hold the doors shut on him so he couldn't go outside for recess, and would block him from going to his classrooms by holding the door with another student so he couldn't get through the doors.
Yeah, the thing about the Title IX investigation was stunning with the contradictions. None of the, I understand lining up all the stories that are the same is highly suspicious, but every version of the witnesses is different. There was very low consistency. Was the teacher there? Wasn't the teacher there? What did you see? What did you didn't see? I don't remember doing anything.
I don't recall that day.
I don't recall that day.
One other student said he did hear Aiden hollering stop, so he ran to his desk. Just everyone had a different story, but clearly there was no schoolwork being done in that classroom from all the reports that were written from the students or that were questioned by the students. The teacher had no control of the classroom whatsoever. But yet, our child is at Wethersfield.
Yeah.
And those boys are still there.
Yeah. The thing was that we had this struggle to get our son removed from Windsor. He was out of school for 6 weeks before we were able to get him to Wethersfield. It was an epic battle. Once at Wethersfield, completely different school. The teacher, the principal, administrator is very direct and no nonsense. And there's a 0 tolerance policy. And I admire it. I mean, the school is so much more structured than Windsor. I understand it's a lot smaller than Windsor, but I went to Windsor. My whole family went to Windsor. My class size was 80 something. My sister was over 150 something. And one of my brothers was 200 plus students in one class. And there was no issue anywhere close to this. And if there was something significant happening, it was dealt with immediately. Liz touched base. There was discipline. There was an expectation that the offenders would be held accountable and the victims would get the help they needed. And it's just not happening. It's just not happening. Okay.
Any other comments?
I'll say something over here.
I'm Jess Brody. I have a son who's in 5th grade and twins girls that are in 2nd grade. None of them are bullies. None of them have been bullied. That's why I'm here. I'm here because, one, I wanted to support families that have been feeling this. I'm also our ABS school PTO president. So I can tell you that I've heard from several families about various concerns, bullying being one of them. And I just want to share in support of what you guys are saying, even though my kids are not bullies or being bullied, as far as I know. They are seeing this and they are telling me, and it is affecting them. So whether they're being bullied or not, they are still seeing it, and it is still affecting them. And to Liz's point on discipline, I work in the field of parks and recreation, and I have my entire career. And it's very clear for a program that you pay for, whether it's summer camp or youth sports, there's a code of conduct for both parents and children. And if you don't meet that code of conduct, you are pulled from that sport. You are not allowed at that summer camp if you go through this criteria. So I'm sitting here listening to all of this, and I'm like, why is it so hard to discipline students when I see the same kids when they're not in school? I see them in summer camps and I see them in after school programs. And there's different sets of rules that these kids, like their parents are paying for them to go to these programs. It's not about like public school is free and it's for everyone. Like they're paying, but if they're misbehaving, they're not going to be allowed to go there because they're interrupting everyone else that's trying to play. So I don't have skin in the game, I guess, like some of these guys, but I just wanted to share my experience as like the non-affected, as you will, that it is still affecting everyone.
Appreciate that perspective. Any other comments, Laura?
My name's Ashley Nusity. I have a first grader that goes here to Albert Bridge, who he is not bullied and does not bully other kids. We actually really love the school. But I'm kind of here. I was someone who was bullied in high school and had a suicide attempt because of it. And I also work in the mental health field and child and adolescent psychiatry. So I do see a lot of this on a daily basis. And yeah, it really is kind of like a shame that there are the children and adolescents that are being bullied are the ones that are having to leave, because with all children are just so like influential to each other, and it's kind of it is disturbing knowing that the ones that are doing the bullying are staying in school and having influence over all of the other students. So, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I'll speak to you. My name is Matt Frederick. As Liz said, we've got 3 kids. Only 2 of them are currently in the district. A 7th grader at Weathersfield and a 6th grader here at ABS and a 1st grader at ABS. The discipline thing I think has gotten across, but I want to go a step above that and talk about accountability, because it's on you guys to make sure this system is working, and it isn't, right? So the parents are at fault a lot of times, right? They send you students who are not ready to learn. They have a hard time focusing when they're in school. They act out, they misbehave, they treat the other kids poorly. The communication from you to these parents isn't satisfactory. I mean, it is not getting the point across to them. So that will always be a problem until you all take a firmer stance against it. Beyond that, when it fails, right, if it fails at the teacher level, right, it's up to the principals to make sure that those teachers understand where they're failing. When that doesn't happen, it's up to the superintendent to make sure that the principals understand. And when that doesn't happen, it's up to you guys to make sure the superintendent understands. And I don't think any of those steps are being properly monitored. I don't think the principals are doing enough to make sure that their teachers understand what they should be enforcing. I don't think, as Liz said, that the students even know all the rules or what the consequences of breaking them are. Some of the consequences, like the restorative circles, frankly, I've seen no success in them at all. It would work against, if all of the parties involved are willing, that's a great solution. But when you're trying to force the restorative justice, when one party doesn't even think that they've done wrong, which is what we went through here, you're not going to get a positive outcome. And there's no one enforcing it to make sure that change happens. So I don't know ultimately where it is, it seems to me that the school board needs to be firmer. I mean, I know a lot of y'all personally, between the people on Zoom and the people in this room. Y'all are nice people, right? I think, Ms. Reed, you're the only one I don't know, right? I'm sure you're a lovely person as well.
She is.
I have a lot of respect for you all as people, but I need you to be firmer in making sure that my kids are safe in school.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Ditto on that list.
Also, I think I hit 3 minutes.
That's
Sorry.
Any other comments from administration, board members?
I really appreciate you all coming and sharing your stories. I know that cannot be easy. Thank you.
And I will say I'm appreciative that you're here. I've been involved in some of the incidents that have happened, and I think that's work to do. So we all acknowledge that. It's not what you're saying is true. It is public school. All kids have a right, but it doesn't mean that it needs to be a safe place for everybody. So I hear what you're saying about making sure students understand the rules and consequences that need to be followed. I think our intent in creating the behavior matrix, which is work that's been ongoing. I think we say it's still in draft form because we wanted to try it out and see how it worked. I mean, that needs to go public, and people need to understand what the rules are and what the consequences are that are outlined. I think some of what we deal with as administrators is not every case is the same. So when you have, it's never black and white. So sometimes there's gray. And so I think trying out that behavior matrix is to see if it fits, if it's working. And sometimes there's variance in there depending on the situation. So, but I hear you, we hear you, and we've got work to do, and we're gonna do it. So, appreciate you. And I'm sorry for the experience that your kids have had. That doesn't fix it. I just want to acknowledge it.
Yes, thank you. That part is good. And I don't want to speak too long again, but just to say, these students are our future leaders. So the lessons they learn in school, good and bad, are how they will lead us in the future. And I don't love it.
So if there's,
certainly.
I don't think we highlighted parents either, because I think, like Matt said, like we all appreciate all the stuff you guys do. And I think communication with parents can be better, but if there's a way, I don't know what it would look like because I'm not in school administration, but like a way for parents to get together and voice their concerns, like in a more informal environment that's not so rigid on like a public meeting. Because like you said, like parents talk and people talk and everyone knows what's going on, but is that even being relayed to you? And then expectations of parents too, because like it was highlighted, you know, if a child is coming to you in a state from their home life that is difficult, how can you help the parents on that end to understand like their expectations too, and what can be done to help communicate and train, I guess, the parents. So
Just to add on that, my family's legacy at Windsor is very deep, 125 years. And Windsor High School used to be a real crown gem. People were not from school, there was pride, and people wanted to go to Windsor. I mean, my freshman class, we had West Windsor, Ascutney, Cornish. Everybody wanted to come to Windsor because of its reputation. I think that reputation's been tarnished, and now it's getting a bad reputation. So image is everything in these schools, pretty much anything in life. And to have that, not that positive image anymore, it's going to be very harmful for Windsor. And I think that the goal is to bring Windsor back to that standard it was back in the day.
I just kind of had something else to add. And I don't know what, if anything, is being done in these circumstances, but not only for those being bullied, but those that are doing the bullying, like what kind of supports are being offered to them as far as like mental health supports, community supports. It seems like that should definitely be a big part of it as well, besides just what's being done in school, like families, giving families resources, and just support to deal with like the behavioral issues, and then the whole mental aspect that comes with being bullied. Kids need support after going through that.
Thank you. Are there any more comments? I think we should. I appreciate everybody's input on this. It's been extremely valuable.
I just have a quick thing. So like Nicole used to be a counselor that would go around from Albert Bridge, Windsor, Weathersfield, and offer support for kids, which my kids were seeing her, but apparently she has a different role now, is what we were told. So unless I'm wrong, you guys are looking at me like I'm
Oh, I'm
weird.
trying to think of
You're
it.
talking.
Nicole,
yes. Oh,
yeah. So now that support that is desperately needed while at school is not being offered anymore.
I think in her role, we have more than one. And I think I could be wrong, but I believe it's just different schools have serviced by different school psychologists.
And we don't have enough resources. We have kids who need help that don't fit the priority.
Well, I mean, my boys were getting services and they're not, and they do fit the criteria. So it just got pulled out this year. They were seeing her and then it stopped.
I just want to say within that, like, I think it's really important that we do offer support to kids. I've noticed in the past that our reaction to these types of situations is to focus a lot on the victim and how do we help the victim deal with being in school, which I think is important, but it takes a lot of the focus off the fact that there's a problem. And so much of it is like, let's send the victim of bullying to the guidance counselor, or let's send them to a different school. And while those things need to be in place, like, my fear is that people will think, oh, we're doing that, and then pat themselves on the back that the problem is solved. And that's just like a solution to a problem we shouldn't even have. So just to be clear.
So I'll pick that up and wrap this conversation up. And I appreciate everybody's input on this. I know we've let it kind of be a little bit more expensive, but I think this is something that really has, this issue has come to my attention multiple times over the last several years. I think the rest of the board can speak to that too. And it's extremely valuable for you all to come here and share your experiences and your insight. And I know that takes an incredible amount of vulnerability and bravery, really, to stand up and give voice to that experience that you're having as families, that your students are having in our schools. It's apparent to me, both from what I've heard over the years, but especially from what I've heard tonight, from the kind of range of perspectives that we have, that I think that there are myriad issues that need to be sort of approached in tandem in order to make the kind of changes in our school, in our buildings in this district, which is Albert Bridge and Windsor, that need to be made. I think just from tonight, I would identify, I think, some clear communication and materials around expectations. I'm just thinking of actionable things that have popped up from what everyone's saying, administration, parents, other board members. I think more regular data reporting is something that I would like to see, that is clearly going out to parents on this. I think that that's, you know, I know that we see it regularly in board meetings, but I can appreciate that that isn't always the best venue for the clear and consistent communication of data. So I think looking at other channels to get that across clearly to folks, kind of where things are at, and then what functionally is being done to address them in some way, shape, or form. At the core of it, you know, the implementation of these policies, I think it was acknowledged earlier, a lot at the policy level, a lot of this does come directly from compliance with state law. And where the rubber hits the road on this is in the procedures and then the implementation of those procedures in our buildings. So I mean, my expectation is that the implementation is consistent, is that training is consistent, and that data reporting is consistent. And I think that tonight, and I appreciate the hard work you all do, but I think that we're seeing that there does need to be some material improvement on all of those fronts. So that's something that I certainly, I think this is a discussion that we're going to want to continue in a subsequent meeting and come up with some sort of a plan. I think I'd like to hear that from you all, what a data reporting plan is on this and how we're making some material improvements as a starting point. When it comes to arriving at a solution, I know that what I bring to this particular role is a commitment to continuous improvement. There is no achieving the ideal state when we're working in a school system. There's always an improvement that's going to have to be made. And I think that our prioritization of this particular issue, and I think behavior in general, and expectations around behavior, you know, across that spectrum, the highest level of this, I think, is that just needs to rise a couple of rungs up the ladder of priority, and we need to have some sustained conversation and focus on that. So, and I'll just underscore again, I think that having everybody who is involved in this in the same room, our administrators, our board, students, parents, you know, we might have some teachers still online. It's valuable to have us all be level setting this stuff so we can have a clear conversation and understand where we need to go forward. But it does need to be a continuous process. And, you know, speaking just personally as only one board member, you know, I don't have kids in the school. So it's, when I say how valuable it is to hear from all you, it is incredibly valuable. There are other board members who have students who I speak with, but you know, I rely on that input. So I hope that you continue reaching out if this is an issue. I know I've spoken to many of you, and when it comes to individual cases, there are legal barriers to any member of the board having a direct involvement as to how those go, but communications around like frustrations around them, process issues, that kind of stuff. That's where we can have input, and we can best serve our role of making improvements that, you know, clearly need to be made. So yeah, I appreciate you all being here. I know this has been a late one, and we've kind of expanded, like folks really just like get all the information out, because I think it's something that we need to hear. So I think with that, we're going to move on to the rest of our agenda. Yep, I do. Yeah,
That's okay if they leave right there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, nobody's. I was impressed that. Yeah, I was gonna say nobody's hostage. You all can take off. There you go.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
I just saw your face when you said there was another.
It's now just sometimes.
I can't believe they stayed this long.
So just to keep things rolling, we're on to item D, which is substitute pay.
Yeah,
So at the SU level, we talked about setting a rate of $150 a day, but that needs to be approved at every board, every local board, because it's local budget funds that pay those substitute teachers. I can tell you that the range of pay in the area is from 125. Thank you.
Thanks.
$125 to $175, which is why I think the SU board settled at $150. I was asked by Weathersfield to get numbers on what we're actually spending, so I got them for everybody in case you were interested. So in Mount Ascutney, I will start with 2022. We had we budgeted 130,000. We spent 73,000. In 2023, we budgeted. Sorry, it's very small. Oh, that's got to be a mistake. We budgeted 8,000 and spent 108,000.
You told me this, and I thought we had talked about, like, was that a regular, like,
Yeah, it was
traditional subs and not
and
the
not the perma subs. Yes. And then in 2024, we budgeted 132. We spent 124, so pretty close. This year we budgeted 149, and we are over by $28,000.
Or it could have been that the first time we had the perma subs, it
28,000.
was the first time we had perma subs, we had ESSER money the first time we had
Yeah,
them.
I think we did.
I think that's why it was
that's
not that
probably-
high.
So
Yeah,
is,
we're over budgeting our subline this year
is
already.
it the,
Nancy?
is it the need for so many subs that could create,
An environment that
yes, that is just out of control?
we do have, I mean, we could start reporting on
Yeah.
staff
How many days
absences.
we've had a complete staff
We've
this
talked
year?
about it a
I
lot.
think 3.
Yeah.
3 days we've had complete staff.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's different when a teacher can take over a class,
Right.
but when there's just a sub in a high school class,
Mhm.
just don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
so-
think what it's good to hear that data about how much we're spending on it, because I think, it seems like it's been a little bit all over the map, but correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm trying to recall what you said, but it's been more common for us to be close or over
Yes.
the budgeted amount.
Yes. Yep.
And we're still not feeling like we're able to access subs.
Correct.
Okay. So, I mean, that's something that I think as we go to budget season, we really need to be aware of. Because
Yeah, and I will say, when we're pulling people to sub, which happens, like we're pulling support staff
Mhm.
to sub for a teacher, yes, then there are less people doing the jobs in the classrooms, and it does lend itself to other issues.
My question's around the support staff. Like, I completely understand pulling support staff affects students. My question is, when the support staff is pulled to sub, do they get a stipend? I'm just curious
Most
of
of
what
the-
that looks like for our budget.
Most of the support staff make more than what the sub pay is.
So
So
they're,
Yeah.
right.
if they didn't, they would get the higher pay.
That's how it's currently written in the contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we should, I think what Davis is saying in budget season, that number could be a lot higher if we're, it's something we have to think about, right? Like, consider.
Yeah, I
If
mean,
we're-
to me, it underscores the reality that, in order for us to be able to deliver the services that we need to be willing and able to spend the amount that it takes us to get those services.
Yeah.
And I think it's that thing that comes up frequently where if we're undershooting on what we should be providing for compensation, both in the budget and as an hourly or as a stipend, and then we're not able to get those folks, then, it creates a
Right.
systemic issue where we're
Yeah.
pulling support staff, and then that has knock-on effects.
I'm sorry, Bill's not here, but maybe you guys know, what is the amount of time that a teacher gets for sick days?
They get 15 days a year. I think
And
it's
if you're a
15.
new teacher, you have to give 2
You
to
have
the
to
sick
give 2
bank.
to the
So you
sick
have
bank.
13 if you're a first year teacher, and you have
But they-
15 normally
But
each
they
year.
roll, Nancy, if you don't use them.
If you don't use them, you could have 30 the next
When
year.
when I left teaching, I had 140 sick days.
Yeah, I was never absent.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
I had one.
we did, I think, negotiate they get a little bit of pay for so many days. If, I can't remember the exact language. It's not a lot, but we thought it might incentivize.
Christine, those numbers though for subbing are subs for support staff and teachers, right? Like, so it's not just.
Yeah,
teachers.
we often don't get support staff subs.
That's just teachers.
Mostly
That's
teachers.
our perma sub money and our regular day subs that come in,
Right.
that get called in.
And our
We don't
perma
usually
subs, Perm subs make I mean, they have a contract because
Yeah.
they're there every day, so they make more than a substitute.
There's usually not a sub called for a support staff member. They're
Right.
covering for each other, and we're just
Yeah.
thin on staff when that happens.
Correct.
Mhm.
So
So the question before us right now is if we will approve, what is it, 150?
150 for the daily rate.
150 daily rate?
Yep.
And that's up from, please remind me?
125.
Up from 125?
Yep.
Okay, and I think I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, the range that we were looking at for districts around here was
125 to 175.
125 to 175, so
Yep.
we're falling right about the mean.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's acceptable. All right,
You have to make
I will
the
take,
motion, yeah.
yeah, I will take a motion to set our sub daily pay rate at $150.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Going once, going twice. I'm not hearing it. All right, and once again, because we're on a roll with it, I will take a voice vote on this. So all of those in favor, please say aye.
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 So aye as well. Those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, all right. So 150 is our new rate. Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, thanks for.
I see an
Look into that,
invitation from you. Are we having that meeting?
We have
Unless something
resignation.
changes.
Yep, so we're on to item E, resignation.
Colleen's
have
got one and
a-
Kate's got one.
I
As
have
you say,
a
it's plural now.
letter, March 17th, dear Colleen and Christine. I'm writing to inform you that I will be resigning at the end of 24-25 school year. I have appreciated the opportunity to work in this district, and I will be moving to seek employment in Massachusetts where my partner lives. Thank you, Anyata Hamilton.
What did she teach?
Middle school writing.
And Kate has one that came in today, and I think if we get the board's approval, we can post immediately. Otherwise, we have to wait. So
Mine, it's heartbreaking, but it's Lauren Warner, and it's simply because she has a commute an hour and a half each way, each day. And well, I guess they know because they were at the board meeting tonight. I let her know that there were kids at the board meeting
I'm not
tonight.
gonna say anything.
Talk to them tomorrow, but she is very invested. We've never really done it this way. She's very invested in being part of the process to find the next theater teacher, so there could be consistency in her plans. I mean, what she has done for our program in the 2 years she's been here has been amazing, and she would like to make sure that's continued. I'm sure Brian, who is on here tonight, he worked very closely with Lauren. He'll be stability and making sure it is continued, but the amount of experiences those kids are able to have and the festivals they were able to attend, it's been remarkable, and it's really increased our theater participation. So she has requested that she be part of the process to find the next one, which we have never done before. So Christine, that would be a question for you.
Yes, thank you.
yeah, I think we can do that.
It's important.
Can you just remind me the name of the first person?
Anyata Hamilton.
Are they both staying until the end of the school year?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
Is that okay? I don't even know what the first name is.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sad to see both of these teachers go, and I am more personally familiar with the work that Lauren's done. I've seen some really amazing theater presentations, and I also know those were pretty big shoes to fill with Julia Elwood having been there for 20 plus years.
Long time.
Yeah. But glad she wants to be part of the process. So I will take a motion to accept the resignations of Anyata Hamilton and Lauren Warner.
So moved.
I'm not gonna get involved. Is there a second?
Second, Elizabeth.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. Hearing none, I will take a voice vote to approve these resignations. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, so we've approved those resignations. Sad as I am to hear about them.
Yeah. How long has Hinata been with us?
This was her first year.
So last but not least, we just need to briefly talk about, and actually, you know what? So we have community dinner scheduling on here. It's really late.
Next time.
This is something that we can talk about. Well, I'm just going to ask you all because I did send this out via email. Just a reminder, we can do this via email. We don't need to spend time here doing this. So I'm just going to, everybody in the board, I'm going to send the email again, and I would just ask, please, within the next week, let me know which dates work for you. I think I only heard back, I'll put you on the spot, I only heard back from about 2 people. And scheduling is something that we truly do not have to do in this space. So I am going to table that one and take it offline, and I'll be way more annoying about getting those times here. I might even make one of my fun Google Doc grids, so we all know when it works.
And maybe think of one dinner instead of 2.
Yep, and we can talk about that all. That's scheduling. We don't have to talk about it in the setting, so I'm just going to table that one. We'll take it offline. All right, setting the next agenda. I'm going to throw out there just to continue the carrying on from that bullying conversation. I just think that behavior as a general item should be on there with just those high points. Like what I'd like to hear is just some kind of plan for communication, implementation, training. I think the thing that was pretty apparent what was discussed tonight. So I think hearing a report back about what that's going to look like. The only thing I would say is I don't think at every single meeting that would need to come out, but maybe we think about doing something like a quarterly or biannual update that's focused on that, just so we kind of keep that in the air. Anything else for the next agenda?
We have to approve the TAN, the tax anticipation note.
Yes. Yep.
And we're going to have a presentation from high school students.
Mm-hmm.
Kate's going to prepare that for us for next time. And we had thought maybe the student growth report would be ready, but I think May 5th is too soon. I think we'll have to do it in June.
Okay.
Which report is that? Oh, STAR.
Yeah.
STAR
I don't think the kids will be done by then. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm taking July and August off.
I don't think we've decided that yet.
Sorry. Can we maybe talk about that?
Yeah, we can talk about that in May. I think that's a good time to talk about it. Cool.
Got it.
So summer scheduling.
Yeah. Okay, that's it.
All right. Well, there we go. Nice short agenda to bookend our long agenda. All right. 8, any need for an executive session? I don't have one. You all don't have one? All right. In that case, I will take a motion to adjourn, or I'll, if there's nobody who objects, I'll adjourn the meeting at 9:08 p.m. tonight.
Thank you.
All right, hearing no objections, we're adjourned. I did, Elizabeth. I did the thing. Yeah.
Excellent. Well done, Davis.
All right. Thanks for sticking out. Long meeting, everyone.
I think that was a